There are a few times when I go to see the latest superhero movie and be truly excited and that film actually lives up to the hype. And in a rare instance that has happened as I just saw Spider-Man Brand New Day. And I walked out of the theater thinking this was the best Spider-Man movie since Spider-Man 2. After years of multiverse spectacle and sky-high anticipation following No Way Home, Destin Daniel Cretton actually pulled it off. He's given us the best Spidey movie in years. But what makes Spider-Man Brand New Day feel so special? Why has this instantly become the Spider-Man movie we have been waiting for? And after watching it 3 times, I think I know the answer. The specific risks they took with Peter Parker that not only makes it fresh, but changed the way I viewed the movie. So we are gonna break down everything, from the high-octane action to the quiet character choices that make this feel like the definitive modern Spider-Man movie. We're living in an era of superhero fatigue, where movies feel generic, safe, and totally forgettable. But Spider-Man Brand New Day just did the impossible. It didn't just live up to massive expectations left by No Way Home, it completely shattered them by returning Peter Parker to the one place we've been begging for, the streets. The first thing that stands out is the tone. Jon Watts' Spider-Man trilogy embraced a John Hughes-inspired coming-of-age style, and for what it's worth, it worked incredibly well for that version of Peter Parker. But Spider-Man Brand New Day takes that in a completely different direction. It's darker, more mature, and far more grounded. The world still has its larger-than-life moments, but the stakes still feel personal. There are no world-ending CGI skybeams or multiverse distractions. At its heart, this is a story about Peter Parker's isolation, his loneliness, and his desperate attempt to find purpose by being Spider-Man. A huge reason as to why this movie worked so well is director Destin Daniel Cretton. The moment Marvel announced he was directing, I had complete confidence, and every update leading to the release only made me more excited. And you can tell when watching this movie how much this character means to him. Instead of reinventing what Jon Watts built, Cretton expands on it with genuine respect, giving Tom Holland Spider-Man the evolution we have wanted for years. If you've seen Shang-Chi, you already know Destin Daniel Cretton can direct incredible action, and somehow he tops himself here. This is easily the best action Tom Holland has ever had as Spider-Man. There are some awesome camera tricks here, like showing us the inside of Peter's mask during intense moments, making every fight feel more immersive. Even better is the commitment to practical effects. Previous MCU Spider-Man films leaned heavily on CGI. Destin Daniel Cretton basically said, okay, that's cool, but I want to do this for real. And it shows. So much of the web swinging was achieved with practical wireworks and on-set stunts. You could genuinely feel the momentum in every swing. That tangible realism makes every action scene hit harder, and the battles against Scorpion in the hands are some of the most exciting Spider-Man fights we've ever seen. But it's not just the stunts that feel real, the entire look of the film has elevated to a level we have never seen the MCU do. For once, we get a Spider-Man movie that makes us feel like we are right there with Peter Parker. Compare this to the recent Avengers Doomsday footage, and the difference is staggering. Spider-Man Brand New Day feels cinematic. The other looks like an expensive video game cutscene. But beautiful visuals alone don't make a great Spider-Man movie. The Amazing Spider-Man 2 is proof that stunning cinematography can't save a weak story. You can spend hundreds of millions of dollars on visual effects, but if the characters don't work, it's just flashing lights at midnight. But Destin Daniel Cretton understands that balance. He delivers a style we have wanted while making sure the emotional journey always comes first. And nothing proves that balance more than Peter Parker himself. A few years ago, saying Tom Holland was your favorite Spider-Man would have gotten you laughed out of the conversation. After Spider-Man Brand New Day, that is no longer a hot take. It's practically become a joke in the fandom that Peter Parker has to be broke, lonely, and struggling, but that's exactly what makes Spider-Man relatable. From the opening scenes where Peter is forced to live without the people he once knew, you immediately feel his pain. His loneliness never feels forced, it feels real. In a world where so many people are juggling just to stay afloat, Peter Parker becomes more relatable than ever, and that emotional connection carries the entire movie. What makes it even better is that Peter isn't just returning to his street-level roots, he's changing as a person. When it became clear that the movie was exploring a darker transformation inspired by the classic Spider-Man storylines, I was interested, but also cautious. This kind of story can either be unforgettable or completely fall apart. And here it's the former. Every physical change Peter experiences becomes a reflection of the emotional trauma he's been burying since No Way Home. These aren't just random changes for the sake of something new, they're rooted in a real physical manifestation of his trauma that's been building up for years. The core theme of Spider-Man Brand New Day tells a simple but timeless Spider-Man story. You can't hide who you truly are. Much like Bruce Wayne in The Batman, Peter spends most of the movie fully embracing Spider-Man, but eventually he realizes he can't abandon Peter Parker forever. Healing means accepting both sides of himself, letting people back into his life, and learning to trust others again. It's a message we've seen before. Heck, Thunderbolts did it last year. But because of everything this version of Peter has endured, it lands with even greater emotional moments and makes the ending incredibly satisfying. And then there are Peter's friends, or more accurately, the friends who no longer remember him. This is another area where the movie absolutely delivers. Tom Holland and Zendaya continue to have phenomenal chemistry, and every scene between Peter and MJ feels natural and heartfelt. Their real-life relationship certainly helps, but more importantly, you can feel how much Peter and MJ's dynamic has matured since the earlier films. The same goes for Ned. Even with limited screen time, his scenes remind you why this friendship matters so much. As for everything else, that's where you have to step into spoiler territory. But before we talk about spoilers, if you're the kind of person who wants to understand why a movie or TV show works, not just whether it's good or bad, you're in the right place. So make sure to subscribe to the channel. That's exactly what we do here every single week. Okay, let's get into some spoiler talk now. When rumors floated around that Jean Grey was going to be a villain in the Spider-Man movie, it sounded like X-Men homework gone wrong. And in parts, it leans towards that. But in Brand New Day, it's actually the best thing to happen to Peter Parker. Because the deeper you get into it, the more you learn about the story, the more you realize Jean Grey isn't just here to set up the mutants in the MCU, she's one of the biggest reasons Peter Parker's emotional journey works so well. When you look closer at how Jean Grey is written in Spider-Man Brand New Day, she's much more than an X-Men crossover. She's a reflection of Peter Parker's mental state. Think about it. Jean lost her sister, while Peter lost everyone who mattered to him. They're both trapped by grief, convinced they're better off alone. And because Jean is a mutant, she is treated like an outsider. Their stories mirror each other perfectly, allowing both characters to grow together instead of one simply existing to support the other. Take the final battle, where Jean enters Peter's mind and Aunt May appears. She tells them they're not alone, that healing won't be easy, but they're still wanted. On the surface, she's speaking to Peter, but those words are really meant for Jean too. Then Peter carries Aunt May's lessons into this conversation with Jean. He doesn't try to destroy her, he tries to save her. That's the heart of Spider-Man, helping people, even the ones standing against him. However, that doesn't change the fact that Jean is terrifying for a lot of the movie. The scene where Peter believes MJ remembers him is gut-wrenching, but then the floor drops. He realizes it's Jean messing with his mind. My theater completely lost it. For brief moments, you think it's catharsis, but then you realize, hang on a minute, something isn't right. It's one of the movie's best twists and perfectly shows just how broken Jean has become. But also, even with that, it does also open up some nice and terrifying storytelling for the MCU. Like when I first saw that conversation between Peter and Jean, it gave me a lot of ideas with this pairing. Maybe Peter can be what Jean to what Tony was to him. Two lonely people bonding and becoming better for each other. But at the same time, Peter's tech used to dampen his mutation is for sure gonna create some problems. He basically pulled an Oppenheimer and gave damage control a way to arrest mutants. It doesn't just change how you view the movie, but it sets up a terrifying problem for both Peter's and the X-Men's future. Now, I mentioned the final battle, and I've seen a lot of people criticize this, saying it was weird there wasn't a big CGI video game boss fight, but I don't really see that. This is more of a personal opinion, but I'm really sick of superhero movies doing the whole hero versus villain trope. It's just been done to death at this point, especially in a superhero fatigue landscape. It's more compelling to see a hero not win by punching, but instead to win by having a conversation. It's a realization that what you're becoming isn't right, and you must connect to get better. And if that doesn't scream Spider-Man, I don't know what will. As for the wider Marvel Cinematic Universe connections, I had a great time with it. One of the biggest criticisms of Tom Holland Spider-Man movies is that another Marvel hero always shows up. And I used to be one of these people. But after this movie, I don't really think that. It feels like reading a classic Spider-Man comic, where heroes naturally exist at every corner. The difference here is they actually serve Peter's journey instead of distracting from it, making the world feel bigger without taking the spotlight away from Spider-Man. And that is shown best with the dynamic between Peter and the Punisher. The chemistry between Tom Holland Spider-Man and John Bernthal's The Punisher is flawless, which makes sense since Bernthal helped Tom Holland prepare for his Spider-Man audition years ago. But what makes their dynamic worse isn't just the chemistry, it's the emotional layers. There's a fantastic second act scene where Frank Castle tells Peter that if you love someone that is still alive, you fight for them no matter what, because hiding is never the answer. It ties directly into Peter's character arc. Punisher is what Peter can become if he keeps going down this path. And if we ever got a Marvel movie with just these two together, I would watch instantly.
Battery can't hold a charge, and the reception isn't very— Shut up and take my money!
But things get weird. While the movie gets a lot right, there are two characters that feel forced. Yelena suddenly has a conversation with Peter inside her office, which is a hot tub for some reason. It's a bizarre tonal whiplash for a movie with pretty good pacing that took me right out of the film. Same goes for Hulk. Don't get me wrong, seeing Hulk completely unleash himself was awesome. I loved every second of it. But the way he ultimately is taken out feels convenient. It comes across as a deus ex machina that exists more for the marketing than because it naturally fits into the story. It also doesn't help that both of them are just feeding the story to us. In these moments, it feels like the movie doesn't trust the audience, even if it is at best a minor issue. Now, before we touch on the ending, we need to take a look at how this film might be a bit bloated. The opening 5 minutes recap everything Peter has accomplished over the last few years. He receives the key to New York, recreates classic Spider-Man comic covers, and takes down multiple villains. And to be fair, a lot of it genuinely works. Like, I love seeing Scorpion. I have been waiting over a decade to see it, and it was totally worth it. But other appearances feel unnecessary. The Hand really only exists for one action scene before Jean Grey takes control anyway. At times, this movie feels slightly overcrowded, so I completely understand why this movie won't work for everyone. But my favorite moment comes right at the end. After the final battle with Jean and waking up from his coma, Peter buys flowers to Aunt May and unexpectedly runs into Ned. He simply introduces himself as Peter, they do their old friendship handshake, and suddenly Ned says, Peter. It's perfect. Not because it's Marvel's greatest ending ever, but because it quietly shows Peter's growth. It's debatable whether he remembered him or just realized he was Spider-Man, but regardless, the goal is clear. Peter spent the entire movie terrified of letting people back into his life. Then, without a big speech, he trusts Ned again. That handshake just says everything. Even what they do with MJ really surprised me. She finds the letter Peter wrote where he confesses how much he loves her, but she still doesn't remember who he is. She tells him he doesn't love him, completely breaks his heart, before walking inside to spend some time with Ned. One of my biggest concerns going into Spider-Man Brand New Day was that Marvel would reunite Peter and MJ just because Tom Holland and Zendaya are couples goals. Instead, they resist that temptation. The movie ends with them separated on a rooftop, making it clear their reunion isn't happening anytime soon. As a whole, Spider-Man Brand New Day does an incredible job expanding the MCU while never losing sight of Peter Parker's story. Characters like Jean Grey and the Punisher aren't there for fan service, they actively shape Peter into the Spider-Man we've been waiting to see. It's a story about responsibility, grief, prevalence, and hope, and by the end, it delivers one of the strongest emotional journeys in any Tom Holland Spider-Man movie. Spider-Man Brand New Day is not being called the best Tom Holland Spider-Man film just because of the ending of No Way Home or the return to a grounded street-level story, but because this movie takes Peter Parker into a completely new direction. He's not just surviving without the Avengers or anyone to lean on, he's battling loneliness, grief, and depression. That's what makes Spider-Man Brand New Day stand out apart from every other MCU Spider-Man movie. This is Tom Holland's Spider-Man 2 moment. It's the movie where Marvel takes a real risk and it completely pays off. For Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man, it was losing his powers. For Tom Holland's Peter Parker, is becoming something far more dangerous, a full spider monster. Ever since everyone forgot Peter Parker, the isolation has slowly consumed him, and you can feel that weight in every scene. He spends most of the movie hiding behind Spider-Man, but by the end, he chooses to become Peter Parker again. He realizes that while Spider-Man gives the strength, Peter Parker is the heart that makes him the hero. It's the hope that Aunt May gave him that makes the beliefs shine through. That's why Spider-Man Brand New Day has resonated with so many people. That's why when the first trailer dropped, it got 1 billion views. And that's why it's shattering box office records like it's easy homework, because it delivered exactly what we've been waiting for. It isn't afraid to take bold risks, but it never forgets what makes Spider-Man one of the most beloved superheroes of all time. I genuinely believe this will be a defining movie for millions of people. It's relatable, especially for Gen Z. When you're dealing with financial pressures and loneliness, this Peter Parker finally feels like us. Even if Spider-Man Brand New Day ended up being the final Spider-Man movie, I'd be perfectly satisfied. It belongs in the same conversation as Matt Reeves' The Batman and James Gunn's Superman films. Those all capture their heroes so well that they completely stand on their own, even if nothing ever followed. Every creative decision, every emotional beat, and every frame feels like it came from filmmakers who truly understood these characters and delivered the movies we have been waiting years to see. At the end of the day, Spider-Man Brand New Day is the perfect Spider-Man movie because it understands who Peter Parker really is. He's not just another superhero, he's us. We see ourselves in his struggles, his choices, and his journey back to hope. From the emotional story, to the characters we meet, and the themes it explores, the movie succeeds on almost every level. It isn't flawless, but its strengths easily outweigh its weaknesses. So I'm gonna give this film a 9.5 out of 10. And now, the question is for you. For those of you who have seen this film, I am dying to know what you thought about it. What are your first impressions? Did the MCU finally give us the Spider-Man film we have always wanted? Let me know in the comments below.